Welcome to AnglingBuzz, brought to you by Fleet Farm. I'm Troy Linder. We have an interesting topic today, and that's live bait fishing. Now, throughout the season, many anglers, they'll use minnows, leeches, night crawlers, waxworms, and Euro larvae to catch different kinds of fish. And also, I might add that there is a subset of anglers that have kind of shifted gears from live bait to artificial bait when it comes to walleye, crappie, and bluegill. But we want to focus on live bait because when it's presented properly, it can be extremely effective to catch just about anything. That includes big fish like muskie and pike, also walleye, trout, crappie, and bluegill. Well, you still have to find them first. Location is key. And when you're fishing with live bait, generally speaking, it's kind of a slow presentation. You're dragging a jig or you're suspending a bait beneath a float. Now, there are some instances where high-speed walleye fishing with spinner rigs can be very effective. And today's show, our guest is Lake Vermilion guide, Leech Lake guide Jason Freed, and he's going to share his knowledge and insight into live bait fishing. Jason, thank you for joining us today. I know you spend a lot of time out on the water guiding. What can you tell us about where and how to use live bait?
That's an interesting question, Troy. There's not a real defined time as to when and what kind of live bait I use. In the big picture though, on most cases and in most years, in the spring, it's gonna be a minnow teamed up with a jig. A shiner minnow or a rainbow on a 16th or an 1/8 ounce jig, whether we're fan casting them, snap jigging them, dragging them, swimming them along sand flats in those areas. But as we transition into late spring and summer, on the other hand, that's when leeches and night crawlers come to play. And the reason for that is because of bug hatches and various things taking place on the lake. And those baits mimic creatures, okay, below the water. And so whether you're using a Lindy rig, whether you're using a slip bobber with a leech or a piece of crawler, or night crawlers, for instance, pulling bottom bouncers with spinners are all great tactics. Now, as we transition into the fall, I'm gonna use big minnows. Red tails, creek chubs are definitely the choice when it comes to fishing in the fall. It's a great time to catch really, really big fish of all species because they love those big minnows.
Well, how do you decide when or when not to use live bait?
As a general rule, I like to initially try with fast moving artificial baits if at all possible. But if I'm seeing a lot of fish on electronics or within a general area and they're responding really, really well, I'll go ahead and start adding live bait down there in the mix, and maybe with artificials. Sometimes maybe I have somebody in the boat who's a little bit more of a novice angler or inexperienced. I'll put live bait on right away. The reason for that is really good live bait will do the work for you. A more novice angler doesn't maybe quite have the jigging technique or the retrieve down that goes with certain tactics and presentations, whereas the scent and the taste and the really, really good wiggling action of a leech or a minnow or a crawler, that's a really, really strong trigger for any predatory fish, such as a walleye or a bass or a pike or anything along those lines. Believe it or not, weather and wind can determine my usage of live bait as well. Good stable weather tends to promote positive feeding, and that's when I'll lean on artificial baits. Whereas if we're facing cold front conditions or anything along those lines where things are kind of out of sorts, I'll lean on live bait more so. If you've got a good wind, artificials sometimes can be really good. Whereas no wind, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put live bait down because that wiggling action is sometimes all it takes to catch fish.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you, Jason, for sharing some great insight into live bait fishing. Well, stay with us after this short commercial break. We got more Angling Buzz.
Like many of you, I've had back issues.
From the pounding waves of Lake Erie
to over 30 years of competitive angling.
And a lifetime on the water, but not anymore.
Smooth Moves changed the game.
It's a must-have for me and my clients.
It's like my boat is floating on air.
They're easy to install.
Fully adjustable.
It makes a day on the water a whole lot more comfortable.
Smooth your ride with Smooth Moves.
I'm not like you and my friend. You're not very much like you. By my side, I see things differently.
2021 Minnesota watercraft inspectors found that 95% of boaters were doing their best to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. In short, drain plugs were removed, no standing water was inside the boat, and no zebra mussels or plants were found on the boat or trailer. Thanks for following these simple habit-forming rules. Clean aquatic plants and animals from boats, trailers, and equipment. Drain all water from motors and live wells. Remove all boat plugs and dispose of unused bait in the trash.
Marine Pro, from the makers of Seafoam Motor Treatment. Marine Pro is a complete marine fuel system treatment for all types of marine engines. Just pour it in. Marine Pro works to clean and lubricate your entire fuel system, helps engines start easier and run smoother, stabilizes fuel, and helps prevent costly boat engine problems. Fast starts and smooth running power have never been this easy. Seafoam Marine Pro, available at Fleet Farm.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. Up next, it's our Timely Topics feature, and we're going to be talking about live bait delivery systems.
So live bait really kind of gets a bad rap. A lot of people think of it as a real one-dimensional kind of deal where you're probably rigging or you're just dragging bait below on a hook. When it comes to live bait, there's a lot of ways to play that game, and really to me it comes down to delivery of the live bait. And I'm going to show you just a couple ways in which you can deliver live bait based on the situation that's going to help you catch fish in those situations. And the first one is definitely what I've got here. I've got a bottom bouncer set up, really common, been around for a long time. You know, we'll show you what a bottom bouncer looks like, but it's just a really simple wireframe chunk of lead, and behind it you've usually got some sort of a snelled hook, or in this case I've got a Northland butterfly blade on. And really, when you've got blades on the bait, those blades spin, they attract, they bring in fish, but the live bait is what seals the deal. We've got a crawler there, it's got a harness on it, so there's two hooks buried in that crawler. And it's really nice to be able to do just like I'm doing. We're trolling up and down a break line. We've got a situation where fish are scattered along a long linear piece of structure. So that's just great because these fish up and down this shoreline break, I can go ahead and pull through them as fast as 1.5 miles per hour. And then if I see fish, kind of slow down with the trolling motor here and just really pull that bait slow out in front of their face. And like I said, the crawler is where it's at. It's what seals the deal. So that's one maybe moderate to moderate fast means of presenting live bait, somewhat similar to a crankbait where you can cover water but still have that enticement and attractive properties of the live bait. So what you see me doing now is something that's, for a lot of people when they think live bait, this is probably the most common way of live bait fishing for walleyes, and it's just simply known as rigging. And it's called that because of the way that the rig is set up, and I can show you that in a little bit. But the idea is that when we're seeing fish on the screen, and it's along somewhat of a smaller bit of area that the fish are, what we can do is we can add a little movement and enticement to the presentation by pulling this live bait really slowly through them at, you know, anywhere from 0.2, 0.5, 0.6 miles per hour. And the idea there is that there's a sinker on this system, and that gets you down to the depth you need to be. And then you've got behind that a fluorocarbon or a mono leader with a hook and a bead combination in the live bait. And in this situation, this can be for finicky walleyes. You know, this can be for fish that are in somewhat of a neutral feeding pattern, and you can see them down there. They're in a pretty good cluster, and you can really precisely put that bait right in front of their face. You can kind of drive circles around with your bow mount and really precisely put everything right up in front of them so they can really study it. Again, that's where quality live bait, good leeches, good quality crawlers make a big difference. And some people even live bait rig minnows. And so the idea is, though, is that quality live bait placed in front of neutral fish with a slight bit of motion can really otherwise entice fish that otherwise maybe you wouldn't get to bite. It can be a really productive means for catching fish, especially eater fish in a lot of systems. For other people still, live bait is all about running slip floats. And you know, this is a classic scenario where fish that are somewhat stationary can be very neutral or non-moving in a specific spot, can be targeted pretty easily. So I've got a sunken hump over there. There's kind of a nice shelf on it I can see on the electronics. I've got fish over there, And the idea is that if these fish are going to be so finicky such that I can't pull other forms of live bait through them to get them to eat, or let's say they're maybe shallow and I don't want to drive the boat over the top of them, a slip float is a perfect presentation because you can set it at the depth that you want it with that sliding stop, but then also pitch right on top of them and let the live bait do all the work. Traditionally, a lot of people really like leeches, and that leech can just kind of perform its ribbon-like dance right in front of those fish's face, and it's really hard for a walleye to resist that kind of temptation. So the cool part is that, especially with walleyes, in my experience, a lot of times you can dance that bait in front of them for a little bit, give it a minute or two, but oftentimes you don't need that long. And what you can really do is you can reel it up and just explore different parts of it by doing these short, quick pitches. So even though it's a fairly stationary technique, even though it's a technique for neutral or even negative fish, even slip bobbering can be done with a little bit more effectiveness, a little bit more efficiency, and really that kind of rounds out a couple great ways to present live bait. By certainly no means are those the only way to deliver, but when you're talking about live bait, pulling bottom bouncers, especially with spinners, through fish, active fish, over moderate to large areas, then maybe rigging on slightly smaller areas where you can really pirouette and do tight turns around them is another option. And then third and lastly, throwing some slip floats on top of them. Those three tactics should be in every walleye angler's handbook, and I invite you to take one of them, and if you're not strong with it, go ahead and try it out this year. All of them really produce fish.
Yeah, there are so many different ways to fish live bait, to mix and match the jigs, rigs, and hooks. It seems endless. Well, stay with us. After this short commercial break, we got our Buzz Bite reports as Angling Buzz continues.
Simple, fast, and easy. This automatic launching and loading system on boat-to-trailer.com makes unloading and loading your boat a breeze on both roller or bunk trailer configurations. This system is a simple one-bolt install. No more hanging over the boat, no more cranking in the boat, and no more wet feet. Speed your boat ramp time by visiting boat-to-trailer.com.
Lake Vermilion. Explore. Relax. Reconnect.
Minnesota's most beautiful lake.
Get hooked on our trophy walleye,
That's a beauty.
bass,
My favorite fish.
musky fish,
That's a beauty there.
Things to do? You'll never get bored.
Rooms with a view? We got 'em.
Lake Vermilion. 4 seasons of fun.
Welcome back to Angling Buzz. It's time for this week's Buzz Bite Reports. To kick it off, we're going to join Matt Johnson in the Metro, who's been catching largemouth bass.
This last week we chased a variety of different lake types. We were on 4 different bodies of water in the last 7 days. Spent a couple days on Minnetonka. Really patterned those fish. They're starting to move into that deeper weed line where I'm putting the boat in probably anywhere from 18 to 22 and casting in. We also caught fish as deep as 23 feet of water. So some of these fish on Tonka and other lakes are really starting to stage deep. So they're starting to set up on the deep coontail. Pay attention to electronics. Pay attention to where you make your cast. Be a little more methodical on how you approach a weed line. I'm looking for more abrupt inside turns, places where these fish are going to hold. I've seen a lot of anglers just work an entire weed line, and you can do that, and you can pick up a fish here or there. If you have a productive weed line, if the weed line's productive, by all means, run that whole thing. But for me, if I'm going 20, 30, 40 yards down a weed line and I don't feel like I'm catching anything, I hightail out of there and I jump to another spot. So I look for more abrupt pieces of structure on a weed line, an inside turn, underwater point, deeper weed clumps that come up higher where it wasn't that way the entire weed line. So pay attention to some of those little details on a weed line and why they're holding fish. Because what will oftentimes happen right now is you can duplicate that presentation or that situation on another weed line. Pay attention, not all weed lines are created equal. Your lake maps on your GPS unit don't always show some of the best structure. So remember that there's things you're going to find and things you're going to see that you may not anticipate, but that can be the game changer that day.
Thanks, Matt. Now let's head north to Lake Vermilion with Billy Rosner.
Walleye bite up here in Vermilion's been holding its own. Transitions, the mud has been putting out fish, and also those big mud flats, you know, that 25 foot of water or so, those big large basins. The lead core bite is starting to kick in. You can throw like number 5 shad raps and that'll get you into some walleyes. The weed bite is holding really strong too. That just started going here in the last week or two. And speaking of weeds on Vermilion, in July and August over the years I've caught some of my largest pike in the weeds. You know, that 12 foot stuff, we're up a little shallower. Some of my go-to baits are your Blue Fox Super Bowl spinner bait, your Slop Master by Joe Bucher, also the chatterbaits and buzz baits, your big Suics, your Cisco your Cisco Kids, your Bucher Top Raiders, and your 360 Storm swim baits, all in those areas. Just think bigger profile baits for these pike right now. You'll get in some big pike, but also you'll catch some of those smaller eating size pike on these baits too. So just think bigger profile for that pike fishing. Have a great week and be safe out there.
Thanks, Billy. Now let's head south to Leech Lake with the Leisure Outdoor Boys.
Here's what's going on with Leech Lake right now. The water temperatures are finally getting up there. Mid 70s, I would say on average right now, these warmer days, and the water temps are going. The bug hatches are just finishing up. The main lake was crazy the last couple of weeks with mayfly hatches going on, and Walker Bay has done the same as well. Maybe a little bit left in Walker Bay yet, but the fish are biting. The walleyes are going crazy right now. We're catching a lot of walleyes on slip bobbers, leeches, and night crawlers both in that 10 to 14 foot area. Rocks, sand, some weeds, jig wraps. Always a good bet to get a couple fish out of a school, but the bobbers seem to be a little bit better. And on the main lake with the rocks, not only the bobbers are working, but we're pulling spinners and crawlers too. And that 14 to 17 foot edge, the shelf from the rocks to where the mud is, all the main lake rocks have fish. Smallies are up on the rocks, the wallies are off the edge of the rocks, and the muskies are starting to push to the rocks. They're still in deep water, pushing shallow. It's really good fishing here on Leech Lake. That's this week's Angling Buzz Fish Report. For Leech Lake, I'm Toby Cavalli.
Now let's jump over to the Red River with Brad Durrick, who's been on an awesome catfish bite.
Last time I talked to you from the Red River, I was saying yet again we're going to flood. Well, here's what we got now. We're still a little bit high, but we are in the river, and as predicted, the fishing up here is amazing. We're catching lots of fish between 12 and 22 pounds, and we're fishing just off the shelf on inside bends where it drops into the main channel. Pretty much every bait is working. Chubs, suckers, gold eyes. Sit down, put a timer on for 20-25 minutes. If you don't catch a fish, move on. Just keep working, keep moving. Lots of fish around, lots of good migration, and lots of big fish. This is just one little small sample from here on the Red River.
Thanks, Brad. Now that wraps up this week's Buzz Bite Reports. Don't go anywhere. After a short break, we still have cool products and technique of the week as Angling Buzz continues.
The Deep V Bucktail Jig from Northland Tackle. It's dressed for success. This proven successful keel design gets you down faster, straighter, and the Bucktail, with its natural flowing presentation, delivers unmatched performance. Add to that a unique range of colors, sizes, and realistic 3D eyes. You get a bait that exudes match the hatch realism. The Deep V Bucktail Jig from Northland Tackle. We are walleye.
Looking for the perfect fishing vacation? Leech Lake, Minnesota. There's over 112,000 acres of water to explore with fantastic walleye, bass, pike, panfish, and trophy muskies. The fishing opportunities are endless. Leech Lake has it all with over 30 resorts, lodges, campgrounds, and hotels line its pristine shores. Plan your trip. It's Minnesota's original up-north vacation destination.
Developed from the latest technology, Blackfish technical apparel outperforms, so anglers have gear that they can trust in, no matter the conditions.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Sign up for Fleet Rewards for exclusive offers and deals. Earn points every time you shop. 500 points gets you a $5 reward. It's free and easy to sign up, in-store or online. Plus, earn rewards even faster with the Fleet Rewards credit card. Get 4 times the points every time you use your Fleet Rewards credit card. Start shopping and start saving even more with Fleet Rewards at Fleet Farm.
And now it's time for our cool products brought to you by Fleet Farm. We're going to start out with a couple products from Seafoam. First up is Seafoam Marine Pro. This is specifically designed for marine use, and it's safe for all types of gas and ethanol fuels and stabilizes fuel for up to 2 years. And also from Seafoam, Seafoam Motor Treatment. This is the original Seafoam product for cars, trucks, tractors, lawnmowers, snowmobiles. This is safe, easy to use. This is fast acting and really helps to clean the entire fuel system. Seafoam Motor Treatment and Seafoam Marine Pro. Up next from Northland Tackle, Butterfly Blade Float and Harness. So the Butterfly Blade allows you to troll down to like 0.25 miles per hour, and this can be key this time of year, the dog days of summer, when walleye can get very picky. So you want to try the Butterfly Blade Float and Harness when triggering walleye this time of year. Up next from VMC, the VMC Hover Jig. This is a great live bait delivery system. You can pull this with a bullet weight Carolina rig, and the jig head here, this actually floats. It also has a built-in trailer hook loop, and this will help keep your live bait up off the bottom, especially as weed growth gets kind of heavy here at many lakes. This is a great option for live bait walleye fishing. And up next from Offshore Tackle, the Tattle Flag HD Upgrade Kit. And this is for light biting walleye when they just barely nip at the bait. This is a nice kit that you can add on to your existing Offshore Tackle planer board. You upgrade the kit with this. There's a lot of accessories in here. And again, this works primarily for light biting fish. The Offshore Tackle Tattle Flag HD Upgrade Kit. Up next from DMF Bait Company, the mealworms and butter worms. These are nice small containers that hold live bait. You stop in a Fleet Farm store and they do have a nice live bait selection. These are a couple options that would be great for panfish, bluegill, crappie, sunfish. Just great. Fish this under a float or in a small jig and you'll be catching fish in no time. Up next, a couple products for bait worms. First off, the bait carrier from Magic Products. You can see this has a nice handle. This easily opens and stores your worms inside here. This also floats. And also the bus bedding. This is a complete concentrated worm and food habitat to keep your worms alive for a very long time. And this can also be used in conjunction with your bait carrier. And up next, here's a combo rod and reel for somebody that's just getting started into fishing. This is from Lakes and Rivers. This is a 6-foot 6-inch spinning rod. You can spool this up with like 8-pound monofilament, maybe even 6-pound monofilament. You can catch just about anything that swims, especially bass and panfish. The length is right, 6-foot 6-inch rod, medium action, nice spinning reel that pairs with it. This is from Lakes and Rivers. And up next, the newly designed Icon series from St. Croix Rods. This model here, this is the Bounce and Troll. This is a 7-foot medium heavy power, moderate action. Now, the new Icon series here, great colors. I really like this green. These rods are technique specific. So this is for bottom bouncing and trolling. Real nice rod seat to this. Great eyelets and fantastic quality and craftsmanship from St. Croix. And lastly, from Clam Outdoors, they have a great net series in their Fortis nets. This specific one here, this is their Fortis TD 195. This would be great for panfish, bass, walleye. You have an engraved ruler on the handle. The handle also extends out easily. It locks into place right here with the glide lock technology. Nice deep hoop and rubber coated net to protect the fish. Be sure to visit your local Fleet Farm store. You can also shop online anytime at fleetfarm.com. And right now it's time for our technique of the week.
Any good tackle shop carries a wide variety of live bait options and live bait containment systems. Minnows, leeches, waxworms, spikes, and night crawlers are just a few of the options anglers use throughout the year. One of the biggest factors to live bait fishing is having healthy, squirmy, lively bait. Today I want to share a few tips on storing and caring for your live bait.
While the plain old minnow bucket does work, the best minnow storage systems are like this insulated Angle 13-quart live bait dry box cooler. This will maintain a good supply of minnows for days. If you keep them alive for several days, the key with minnows is to intermittently add fresh, unchlorinated water. This is well worth the investment for anybody who buys a fair amount of minnows. This aerator system runs on either 2 D batteries or plugs into your boat or car 12-volt socket. Night crawlers and worms are excellent bait for walleyes and panfish throughout the summer months. This is prime time for spinner rigging walleyes, where good worms are important. This magic bait carrier is a great way to keep night crawlers in top condition. Simply place the worm bedding in the carrier and then add the crawlers. Occasionally dampen the box and the bedding. The evaporation keeps your bait cool during the warm days in summer. Extreme heat is bad for any type of bait, including worms, leeches, and minnows. The nice thing about the worm box is that it has a door on both sides. Simply flip it over to find a fresh crawler. Leeches are another excellent walleye bait throughout the summer. While a cooler will work for smaller containers, a good couple of options are the leech locker or the bait caddy, which simply contains the leeches in your boat's live well. The nice thing about this system is the bait gets fresh oxygen and is acclimated to the current water temperature you're fishing in. Any bait you put into drastically different water temp tends to shock the bait.
There's no question about it, live bait is highly effective for a variety of different fish species. And the key is having good bait, and that means live bait maintenance.
The management of your live bait to keep it fresh is very, very important. Well, next week's show, we're going to be talking about summertime crappie strategies. And as always here at The Buzz, we want to help remind you to stop the spread of aquatic invasive species anytime you're leaving any body of water clean, drain, dry. And be sure to check us out across our social medias, AnglingBuzz, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well as AnglingBuzz.com. We go more in-depth into our Buzz Bite reports. We got tips, tactics, and videos to help you catch fish throughout the entire season. Well, thank you for joining us this week. I'm Troy Linder, and we'll see you next time.
This week's Buzz Bite report.
Tony Roach, Bray Rolstone,
Lee Talkin here.
Brad Durick up here on the Red River.
Muskegon River.
Leech Lake.
Devils Lake.
Beautiful Lake Vermilion.
Black.
Topwater's been really fun.
Go to the plastics.
Bass like this.
A lot of walleyes like that.
Giant bluegills.
Fresh report from Lake of the Woods.
Grand Traverse Bay.
Alexandria, Minnesota. Get out, get fishing, have fun, rock and roll, take care.